How lucky can one guy be? I kissed her and she kissed me, like the fella once said.
Okay.
Back. I hugged her and she hugged back.
Okay, let's get started here. Um, what we'll do is I'm going to kind of go over a few quick things here with this first PowerPoint. It's been a while since I've messed with these PowerPoints, but let's get started and let's kind of take a look at this first one here. Let's get started with the PowerPoint presentation in the beginning of this course. Now, one of the things you have to understand about humans and about the nature of politics that it began back in a time where you see this picture here. About 20,000 years ago to about 100,000 years ago, humans were alone. We were in nature. We lived in small groups and family units, maybe, 4 or 5, adults and, 6 or 7 kids wandering around. But out in the wilds, humans are, well, before we became the dominant species, we were alone. Very easy prey for animals. Saber cats, dire wolves, you can see in the background there, sloths. Um, we were out there in the state of nature, you know, and like these shows you see, living off the grid, and, they dump some guy in the middle, they're fun shows to watch. They dump somebody in the middle of you know, the, the Alaska wilds, and, you watch them put that, but if any of those people really got seriously injured, they within an hour would have a helicopter there and they'd be airlifting them out in an ambulance because they'd be sued. Um, and the state of nature is war. Now, humans um, kind of think of it this way. Yeah, taking on a mastodon or a smilodon in early human history, we don't have big claws. We don't run fast. We don't have armor. There was a movie a few years ago. It was Brad Pitt or Leonardo DiCaprio, one of those yo-yos, or one of those Johnny Depp or something, and he's alone in the woods, and a bear attacks him, and the bear is jumping on his back. His spine would snap. Okay, that was a 6,000 pound bear. Your spine would snap like a twig. Okay, and if you don't believe me, have somebody drive over you and park on you an SUV on your spine and tell me if your spine works better. Don't go do that. Your human neck will break at 6 pounds. A knee will bust at 7 pounds. Um, but we lived out there in nature, and we had to escape the state of nature because us as humans think of it this way: a human child from age 0 from birth to 5 is, easy prey. We had to learn to protect our young because our young are completely vulnerable to at least 6 or 7, 8 years old. Then they may be able to run away. But, us as humans, you know, we did use primitive tools. We lived in groups. Yeah, but taking on a mastodon like that would have been a hell of a job. And basically, um, very tough work. And, we began, about 5,000 years ago, began to make tools and, began to kind of get a little more organized. But humans are always looking to escape that state of nature. But unfortunately, we needed to have friends. We needed friends. And the friends that we got were canines, dogs. Now, if you look up the Von Oberkessel dog that was found buried with 2 humans, look at the picture. That dog was loved. It was loved by those 2 people. It wasn't a sacrificial animal. It was obviously loved. and us and dogs. And you have to understand this, that your canine friend, if you have a dog, that dog will trade its life for you. Without a doubt, if you were in absolute total danger, that dog would, you know, trade its life for you. And, when people say, something about, oh, my dog died. Hey, that's like losing a child. I'm not going to even get started. You talk to me about my little friend Oscar, or, our other little baby girl, Daisy, or Lily actually was her name. Daisy's her the replacement. But it, yeah, I did. I cried like a baby too. When we lost Oscar, and I get a little misty when talking about it. But our relationship with dogs, they know our young are young. We would have never made it out of the woods. We never would have created to be the point of creating civilization without dogs. Now, those of you who are cat lovers, this does not disparage a cat. Cats don't really come along with us until we start growing grain. And kind of think of it this way: grain, mice, cats. You know, that's when they start. But I don't know if cats really love us. I had a cat at one time, and her name was Catabasis, a beautiful black cat, gorgeous. And she was a supermodel of cats. But unfortunately, I don't know, there may be some cat people in our studio audience. She had a terrible attitude problem. She just had this attitude all the time, like and then at 5:30 every morning, and it didn't matter if it was a weekend or not. Meow, meow, now, now, I want my soft food now. And you weren't going to sleep until you got up and gave her soft food. At 5:30 at night, too. When you came in that front door, she's starting to yell at you, and you weren't going to get anywhere until she got fed. Anyway, but the point is that dogs, children, humans, we had this relationship with them, and they helped us. A quick little story about a dog and myself. Years ago, when Oscar was still with us and Lily was still with us, and we still have Bella. I was taking a nap on a couch, and behind my home in my backyard there were woods. And I was sleeping and had one dog by my head, another dog by my hip, and one at my feet. The one by my head was Lily. And she was sleeping, and then she heard something in those woods. And she lifted her head up and she started looking around, and she started doing a low growl. Okay, now this goes back to 15,000 years ago. This goes back 15,000 years. This is important. She was growling enough to alert the other dogs, as well as me, that, hey, there's something in those woods. It could be dangerous. And 15,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago, or even today in the wilds of Alaska, okay, which is the last real frontier here in North America, or if you wanted to go to the Amazon, there's something dangerous out there. I don't trust it. There could be food or there could be danger. You need to wake up. But I'm not going to let anybody else, I don't want them to know that you know and you're awake. That's the kind of thing that was going on. And that was the relationship we had. And that's hardwired in all the dogs. Think of it this way: your ancestors were the smart ones. Imagine yourself in some big, strange city, and you're in a parking garage by yourself, and you're alone. It's late at night, and you hear another set of footsteps coming behind you. And every time you look and stop and look, they stop and look. That little falling in your stomach, that little pit of the thing in your stomach is that natural hardcore, hardwired DNA thing telling you, hey, there's danger there. Okay. That's taking you back 100,000 years ago when dire wolves were running around. And the dire wolves you saw in the Game of Thrones, they were very grotesque. And that's not what a dire wolf looked like. Um, I'm kind of I kind of into dinosaurs and things like that. So, I kind of pay attention to those things. But anyway, Those dire wolves were like the size of cows or buffalo. They no, they weren't that big. They were big, but they weren't that big. But the point is that our ancestors had to be the smart ones. They're walking around alone in the woods at night or in tall grass. There could be a smilodon in there. That's how they attacked you. You know, they jump on you from a hidden position. They didn't run fast. They, would attack you from hidden position. Dire wolves, you know, two or three are chasing you down a trail. You're trying to shoot off to the left, or you try to shoot off to the right. Another wolf intercepts you and pushes you back on that trail. Where do you think they're pushing you to? Okay, those are the hounds. The hunters are waiting for you. So, us as humans, we had to learn to overcome these things because we have no natural bodily defenses. Our only bodily defense, if you think about it, is this: our smell. Like you see in old World War II movies or, in, old Westerns, oh, do you smell any Indians around? Or Apaches or, are there any Apaches? Oh, no, if there was a nearby, I could smell them. That's true because my uncle, who was a ranger in Vietnam, told me that they would eat only Vietnamese food before they would go on long-term patrols in the jungles of Southeast Asia. And they would only eat Vietnamese food. Why? They didn't want to smell like Americans. Okay, your sweat. Eat a lot of garlic, and then you'll smell the garlic. Because it's our natural bodily defense. Um, Experiences that I've had. For example, well, anyway, like if you eat a lot of garlic, mosquitoes won't bite you, things like that. Our sweat is our thing. We don't smell good. The only animals that really attack us in nature sometimes are very old mountain lions that can't attack, or bears or something that can't get anything else. So we're easy pickings, but we don't smell good. Sharks don't eat us. They just bite us because they think we look like seals in the water. They just bite us and then they leave. They don't eat us because we don't taste good. That's, kind of think of it this way. You don't taste good, but that's not going to save you from Hannibal Lecter. Anyway, the dog was our friend and he helped us because their sense of smell, they can, their sense of hearing, things like that are much, much stronger than a human. And they realized that, hey, us humans were kind of nice guys. We would give them scraps and throw scraps to them, the ones that would hang around by our camps and stuff. And eventually they started, hanging out with us. And then we started adopting their puppies. And, the puppies said, hey, this is, not bad. But our relationship with them goes back very, very far. Okay. Domestication began about 23,000 years ago. And in 2001, a review of current evidence infers the timing provided by, DNA is that we kind of became friends with them in Siberia. And there's a lot of wolves out there. And Siberia is still a very wild place even today. There are cities out there, but they're, very remote, kind of like Alaska. And we needed friends badly. There's dire wolves, Smilodon, uh, short-faced bears. Now that picture of the bear and the three people down there in the right-hand corner. Now that's that is a short-faced bear. Now the guy in the white shirt is 6'3". Okay, in the picture he's known as Shorty. Okay, he's 6'3". Okay, now think of yourself. There. You are out in the woods, in the wilds of Alaska, and a bear like that comes down out of the hills, and there you are, and it comes down out of the hills, and he kind of looks at you, and you look at him, and the bear says to you, "Hey, buddy, this is my fishing hole. Those are my fish. Are you going to argue with him?" Now, Mr. Glock 9, tell him to stay home and stay out of it. Why? Because shooting that with a Glock 9, I don't care how good of a shot you are. That's like a BB gun, okay, to him. All you're going to do is piss him off. The only way you're going to stop him is hitting him in in the liver, the heart, and you're going to have to take out the spine with one shot. Okay. Now, here's an interesting story. I had a friend of mine who was a forest ranger up in Alaska. The reason I use Alaska is because, um, 50 miles outside of Anchorage, you're in the real frontier. You're in the real wilds. Okay. Survivor would never do a show up there. Okay. Why? Because it's dangerous. Okay. The bears and the wolves up there aren't scared of you like they are here. If you run into a bear here or a wolf here, it's going to be scared of you. But up there, you're dinner, you know. And he was a forest ranger and he goes off and patrols the backcountry and goes around lakes and campsites that people frequent. And to get to them, it's not like, you're going to pull in like a campground over here, in Yosemite, in your truck and, hook up your trailer and everything. No, you're not going to get that. What you're going to get is, you know, 50 miles outside of Anchorage is a dirt road. Maybe those little, go-kart things that people like driving around, they look, they're golf carts, but you're really going to need an Amphicat. Um, and the long and the short of it is, um, you can only get there, backcountry. He's on horseback and he's an outdoorsman and he knows, everything about the outdoors. And he says he comes across camps of people who have been fishing and there's very expensive camping gear, very, very expensive. And he'll find these camps and they're abandoned. And the tents are all torn up, the sleeping bags are ripped apart, the ice chests are, completely destroyed. And he says what it is, and he says he knows that it's not, they weren't robbed by anybody, because there's still cell phones, there's money, there's Kindles, there's tablets. And my thing is, you're going into the woods. What makes you think your Kindle is going to be any good or your cell phone? You're not going to get any cell service out there. He carries a satellite phone. Anyway, he says he finds these things and there's all the, IDs, phones, everything. He says, and what it is that the animals have come into the camp, wolves or bears or something, and attacked the camp because these people don't know what they're doing out there. And, his big thing is, you tell people you need a guide if you're going up there and going out to some of those places, and you need somebody who knows what they're doing out there because, you know, these things happen. And he says he'll gather up all the stuff and haul it out and take it back to the ranger station, and they'll contact people and they'll say, oh yeah, they were expected. We haven't heard from them for 3 weeks, and there's reports on them and everything, and they disappear. you know, Husbands, wives, kids, the whole family disappears. Why? Well, you're out there dealing with these people still. There's no dire wolves out there, but there's reports of short-faced bears still running around Alaska. And the short-faced bear is and I asked, how does he know this? And, he gave me some ideas. But anyway, let's do this. Record.